Hello guys, Matthew here and welcome back again to the TechTick YouTube channel. Yes, it's finally here. Almost 2 months after the official release, we got ourselves an aftermarket example of an RX 480 coming from Sapphire, that being their brand new and redesigned Nitro Plus series. This is actually my first proper review of a RX 480, although I previously took a look at it in my RX 480 versus GTX 1060 comparison. Be sure to check that out in the right top corner if you're interested to see who wins that fight. Right away you can notice that Sapphire went with that classical tall and narrow looking box, which they usually use on their more budget oriented models. On the front you can see their Nitro robot mascot, which I actually have here in a form of a cool looking action figure. Beside it you won't find anything interesting on the front, except a notion that this particular model is a 4GB video memory version of the RX 480, while on the side of the box you can see a list of system specifications for the graphics card. Going to the back, there is a really brief overview of the card's features and a small picture of it. Opening up the box, at the top you'll find some user manuals, promotional material and optical disc with drivers and software, and that's about it for the bundle. And here's the graphics card itself. Right out of the box, you can see that this time Sapphire went with a completely new design of their Nitro series for the new RX 480 generation of graphics card, and I must admit it looks and build quality wise feels better than ever. Top side has this rubber-like surface filled with little dots, and that texture actually reminds me a lot of the AMD's reference design cooler for the RX 480. The outer shell is mostly made out of plastic, while the back side reveals a gorgeous looking backplate with some really cool details and Nitro's logo. Behind that outer cover hides a big aluminum block and 3 copper heat pipes, which are basically making full contact with the GPU, memory and power design components like the black diamond chokes, and which cools them all off with the help of these two 95mm fans, which are part of their dual X cooling system. They are also using a 2 ball bearing system, which makes them quieter and more efficient, and they also incorporate their Nitro Quick Connect feature, which lets you pull them off easily in a case of cleaning or replacement. As a cherry on top, Sapphire also put the 0 RPM fan mode called the Nitro Cool Tech, and like with all other brands and models, it also turns off the fans if the card is in idle, or to be precise, if the GPU temperature is under 52 degrees Celsius. On the back of the card you will find one 8-pin PCI Express power connector, and personally I like when they place it like that, makes it more convenient when doing cable management. For the other unconventional features, on the top we have an RGB lit Sapphire logo, which can actually be controlled by a physical switch mode button, which lets you select between 5 different working modes as shown here. It can indicate PCB temperature or fan speed, or you can set up a custom color using the Sapphire's Tri-XX 3.0 selector software, which unfortunately still wasn't available at the time of doing my review. Right next to it you can see a BIOS toggle switch for changing between UEFI or legacy BIOS support. Although it fully supports it, on the top you won't see any crossfire fingers, as this generation of the GCN architecture also supports multi-GPU setup without any need for bridges and only using the PCI Express bus, just like with the last generation. For video outputs you will find a non-reference setup, as Sapphire put an extra DVI-D beside the RX 480 original setup with 3 display ports 1.3 and 1 HDMI 2.0B. Putting the card onto my test bed, right away I went in to play a bit with overclocking settings, as I was eager to see what can I do in terms of that, since up until now I only had the chance to try out the reference design models. Bottom line, the GPU went just a bit above your usual result, in my case 1380 MHz fully stable under more than 10 games and benchmarks, while the memory was just a bit above 1900 MHz, which is a decent move from 1750 MHz. Maybe some of you already know this, but in comparison to the 4GB version of the RX 480 which I have here, the 8GB version of the RX 480 uses faster video memory by default. You can see that on the 8GB model of the RX 480 Nitro Plus, it's running at 2000 MHz, and with that memory you can usually get up to 2200-2250 MHz no problem, just like I did it in my RX 480 versus the GTX 1060 video comparison. On the other hand, both the 4GB and 8GB versions of the Sapphire's Nitro Plus model run at 1306 MHz by default, without any boost clock features. Taking a look at the results, since there isn't that much difference in clock speed between the Sapphire's factory overclocked settings and my 1380 MHz, performance difference between those two states isn't that big, but hey, at least you'll get that quote-unquote free performance and squeeze an FPS or two more out of it, and it's hard to make any complaints on that. Putting that aside, with its performance output, the RX 480 is before all very capable graphics card, ideal for high FPS gaming in 1080p or 16:9 1440p, and even as you can see my 21:9 3440x1440 resolution even at high settings. Although this was an aftermarket solution, the GPU temperature under load was still pretty high, going anywhere from 70 to 78 degrees Celsius, which is not that much lower compared to the 82 degrees Celsius on the reference cooler. Once it reaches those higher temperatures, the fans start to spin really fast, around 2000 to 2500 RPMs, so it can maintain that default baked-in threshold of around 70 to 74 degrees Celsius, and probably also to avoid any thermal throttling. Having that in mind, the card was pretty loud under load, definitely louder than any GTX 1060 that I've tried so far. The idle temperature was around 45 degrees Celsius, which is high, but okay, it's passively cooled. That's one of the reasons why it's so high, but there's a slight problem surrounding it, as we have a low default trigger point when the fans turn on. As I said earlier, that's at 52 degrees Celsius, so you don't need a big load to turn them on quickly, as the difference between those two temperatures isn't too broad. They also continue to spin for quite a while once you're finished with your game, so it seems that it takes some time to cool off the GPU under those 52 degrees Celsius. Of course, you can always change and play with the fan profiles, but honestly I expected a little bit better out of the box, and I'll wait and see how other brands will handle their aftermarket RX 480s, or are they just like that hot to begin with. All in all, despite some of the hiccups, I'm pretty sure that this will be one of the best value-oriented RX 480 models on the market. That's it guys for this time. Thank you once again for checking out the unboxing and review of the Sapphire's RX 480 Nitro Plus graphics card. Feel free to give this video a thumbs up if you like it, leave a comment down below if you have any questions about the product, and of course if you would like to see more content like this, you can subscribe to the TechTeak YouTube channel, or you can just check out some of the other videos from before.